Hi, this is Gabe Ignetti, and this is the 50th anniversary Earth Day edition of The Progressive Eco-Modernist. So if anyone is wondering what eco-modernism is, please go to ecomodernism.org and you could check out the Eco-Modernist Manifesto and learn more. So on with our show. Warning, this show is for mature audiences only. So anyone who loses their minds when they hear contrarian points of view are please advised to change this channel. Also, this is not for the faint of heart, as we will be explicitly breaking down how Mr. Trump has screwed the environment. Our story begins in January 2017, when Donald Trump is sworn in as President of the United States by Melania Trump and goes on to become the most corrupt and authoritarian president in U.S. history. Trump selects Scott Pruitt to head the EPA and Ryan Zink to the Department of Interior. Ryan Zink is a former Montana senator with a lifetime score of 4% with the League of Conservation Voters. One of his greatest accomplishments ever as head of the Department of Interior is to preside over the largest ever oil and gas lease auction in United States history. And Scott Pruitt is a climate denier who sued the EPA 14 times. And Scott Pruitt worked really hard in his time at the EPA. For the polluters, that is. Scott Pruitt goes on to disband the Air Pollution Review Panel, loosen regulations on toxic air pollution, repeal Obama-era methane rules, and roll back car emissions standards. Trump then replaces Scott Pruitt and Ryan Zink, who both left in a cloud of scandal, with Andrew Wheeler, who was a former coal lobbyist, and Zink with oil lobbyist David Bernhardt. This is a long list of all the programs and laws that have been cut back or weakened by Donald Trump. Environmental Policy Act, the Endangered Species Act, the Clean Water Act, the Migratory Birds Treaty Act, the Migratory Birds Conservation Act, the Clean Air Act, the Federal Cave Resources Protection Act, Safe Drinking Water Act, Noise Control Act, the Solid Waste Disposal Act, the Comprehensive Environmental Response, Compensation and Liability Act, the Farmland Protection Policy Act, the Federal Land Policy and Management Act, the Coastal Zone Management Act, Federal Land Policy and Management Act, National Wildlife Refuge System Administration Act, River and Harbors Act, Eagle Protection Act, Fish and Wildlife Coordination Act, and the National Fish and Wildlife Act. So if you think there's no difference between Biden and Trump, no, there is no difference between the prosecutors and the polluters. With the help of a Republican Congress, Trump gets deep cuts in environmental programs, including research and development and clean energy. Oil drilling in the Arctic, along with the Keystone XL and Standing Rock pipelines, gets Trump's wholehearted approval. Trump proceeds to pull the U.S. out of the Paris Climate Accords. He then proceeds to disband this climate advisory panel. Trump attempts through executive fiat to create heresy around even mention of the words climate change in the federal government.
And this is their new hoax.
He drops climate change from the list of national security threats. In the first year of the Trump administration, the U.S. government websites have been systematically altered to cut mention of climate change. Climate change and associated verbiage are stricken from the strategic plan of the Federal Emergency Management Agency. Trump also signs an executive order revoking federal flood risk standards that incorporate rising sea levels predicted by climate science. Trump goes so far as to remove the word science from the mission statement of the Environmental Protection Agency.
The scientists.
Trump axed several NASA Earth science missions, including the Deep Space Climate Observatory and the Plankton Aerosol Cloud and Ocean Environmental Mission, which are both necessary in order to gauge the effects of CO2 and greenhouse gases on the atmosphere and the oceans. And Trump's Environmental Protection Agency killed Obama's signature climate change policy, the Clean Energy Power Plan. A draft report published by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration emphasized that the rollback would increase global CO2 levels from 410 parts per million to almost 780 parts per million. Estimates are that this would dial up the global thermostat by a whopping 7 degrees by the year 2100. Now, according to the third IPCC assessment, we have roughly 10 years left to get our act together seriously on the climate, and we cannot afford to waste away nearly half that time moving backwards under the rule of a lame duck lunatic. And if we don't have a mutiny this November, billions of people could die. At this rate, the earth will get so hot that we will all have to move to Alaska with our bathing suits. The mainland of the United States will be burnt to a crisp, and President Donald Trump Jr. will end up ruling over a desert. Our world will be plunged into total chaos that's somewhere between Mad Max and Star Wars. Nations will be fighting over water instead of oil, and these wars could easily go nuclear. There's only one man that could save us.
I'm Jill Biden's husband. I work for Cedric Richmond.
No, I know what you're thinking, but there's only two guys who could possibly be president. It's like two sides of a coin. Heads, Sleepy Joe. Tails, the sociopath. So it's a no-brainer. You gotta vote for Biden.
No way!
Why?
I don't trust him.
Well, I didn't trust Tricky Dick, greatest environmental president in modern times.
People have got to know whether or not their president's a crook. Well, I'm not a crook.
There's a reason why Tricky Dick was the greatest environmental president. And it's not because he could be trusted. It's because we had a powerful environmental movement then, and we have a powerful environmental movement now. We are the base of the Democratic Party. We're not the base of the sociopath. So, voting for Biden is opening up the door to close the deal.
Humbug!
Look, you could say there's no difference between Coke and Pepsi because they're both owned by the same corporate bad guys. But if Coke is anti-union, I'm buying Pepsi. And I'm not doing it because I trust their CEO leaders, because I don't. Which brings us to Joe Biden. I don't like Joe Biden any more than I like Hillary Clinton. But I know we have one key thing in common. We're not climate deniers like Donald Trump, and we accept the assessments of the CIA and the Pentagon that climate change is a threat to national security. And while Biden is far from perfect, he does have a decent 83% lifetime scorecard with the League of Conservation Voters, compared to below zero for Donald Trump. The stakes are too high to make the perfect be the enemy of the good.
Thought somebody better would come along. Never happened.
Yeah, plain old Joe. But he's the man with the plan, and his plan is even better than Bernie's because it's real. Let me break it down for you. And while Bernie's plan is $17 trillion compared to Biden's plan, I might point out that Biden's plan is actually quite stronger than Barack Obama's plan. I might add that there is just a little problem with passing Bernie's climate bill. Sticker shock. Any plan with a price tag that is as big as the entire national debt would have a snowball's chance in hell of passing, even if the Republicans magically disappeared. And magic is the key word here. So to be precise, magical thinking. Look, all I'm trying to say is we have to learn to see the world the way it is instead of how we want it to be. But don't get me wrong here. A new world is possible, but it will only come with patience and perseverance. And the news is not all bad. We've set the bar from spending billions to spending trillions on the climate. If that's not a sure sign of progress, I don't know what is. So let me leave you with this final thought. I can't tell you what to do, nor would I even do so if I could. I'm just offering my humble opinion. All I'm asking is that you think about what I've said, because this will be the most important election in the history of this planet. It's your vote. Choose wisely. Thank you for joining us. Stay well, and we will be seeing you till next time.